All right, thank you, Michael. So I always enjoy coming and talking about TXDOT, what we have going. And a big emphasis of mine is I want everyone to leave here with some new information or something they can take away, take back home to use to engage the public in what TXDOT has going and our traffic safety statistics. But the first thing, I've got a tip to help everybody out with. And I want everybody to take this back. How do you track Will Smith in the snow? You look for the Fresh Prince. Okay. So I'm not much of a comedian, but I do like dad jokes. All right, so the first part of my presentation is I'm going to start a timer here so I can stay on time, on what we call our UTP, Unified Transportation Plan, or program. So at TXDOT, we love our acronyms. So in simple, modern English, what is a UTP? It's our 10-year financially constrained program for road construction, okay? And this is going to be specifically on the Odessa district. So to put in perspective, I've got a map here showing you what encompasses the Odessa district. So you're going to hear you hear a lot of stats from me, and I'll talk specifically about the Odessa district. You had Sergeant Blanco talk about some traffic safety stats in the Permian Basin. So they're a little bit different depending on which counties you break out, how you look at all of that. So when I'm talking about the Odessa district, I'm talking about these 12 counties that you see on this map. So this slide says draft 2024 UTP. So this is not a draft anymore. This was accepted by our Transportation Commission in August. So it shows each of the 25 districts in the state of Texas and their boundaries. So the kind of tan-colored districts, which Odessa is one of those, by the metrics, as TXDOT looks at it, are considered rural districts. So we've got 3 different metrics. We've got rural, we've got urban, and we've got metro. Several factors go into that. Population is a big part of it. To be a metro district, you have to have over 1 million people in your district. So obviously, we're not ever going to get to that. Well, I guess we could get to that point at some point in the future, but we're a long ways from 1 million people. But when you look at these numbers on the UTP funding for all of the districts, considering Odessa is a rural district, that's kind of hard to see maybe for y'all. So that's $4.3 billion for the Odessa district. Why is that significant? That surpasses all other rural districts in the state as far as highway construction and funding, surpasses all of the other urban districts in the state, and puts us right there in the neighborhood of what the metro districts, the Fort Worth, the Dallas, San Antonio, Austin are getting. San Antonio district's getting $5.4 billion for their 10-year program. So we're just a little bit over $1 billion underneath what they're getting. So we were super excited about that increase. So this table here, I'm an engineer, so I love tables, I love charts, right? So that shows going back to 2016 how the UTP funding. So we do this 10-year program every year. So every August we'll adopt a new one. So that shows you where the funding was at in 2016 for the Odessa district and where we're at now. So pretty big, pretty significant increase. Most of that is attributed to what all of y'all do in this room. So a big portion of this is funded by Prop 1 and Prop 7 that the taxpayers approved, which goes back to the oil and gas severance tax. This shows what we call our letting volume. By letting, we're talking about how many construction projects are we going out for bid each year? So you see the steady increase. We had, of course, a spike in 2020, then kind of a little bit of a letdown in 21. 2024, if you'll see, it's a little over $600 million. So it's actually about $630 million. That's a record for the Odessa district. We've never let that much in 1 year. So the next question you ask is, well, Eric, why are the next 2 years dropping? Okay. Because of the escalation, so our funding is based with accountants and financial guys that do revenue projections. Because the income, the projections what we've actually brought in has been higher than what they projected, TXDOT's bank account has been growing, if that makes sense, okay? So we're bringing in more money than what we anticipated, so we're getting more money. So we've been asked to accelerate projects and move them forward. So we have the 10-year plan, then we have a 4-year kind of more financially constrained plan. So they've been asking us, move your projects you had in 3 and 4, get those plans ready early, accelerate those into year 1 and 2, so we can try to, handle and get this, put the taxpayers' money to work. Okay, does that make sense? So 3 and 4 are these. So for this last plan, 25, 26, those numbers are down. Once we go 1 more year, so we get in the next August, you're going to see that chart shift forward because we'll be accelerating more projects. So not wanting to get that way down in the weeds, but that's why you see that drop off. So this QR code, we have some back here at Dottie's table. This is our outward-facing website. If you go to this QR code, we keep it updated pretty regularly on our projects we have coming in our 10-year plan. So if y'all want to get that, if you ever have a question on what we got coming up, you can go to that website and pull that up. But right now we have $1.3 billion in active construction. We let $538 million in 23 and looking at $640 in 24. So that map shows our active construction projects. So most of y'all work in the Permian Basin, and I'm relatively sure every day you're driving by a road work ahead sign, right? So all this map is telling you is what you already know. We got a lot of road construction going on right now. Another big question we get asked, if any of y'all have businesses live south of I-20 in Midland, what's the deal with Cotton Flat and Midkiff overpasses? Why'd y'all take those out when y'all did? And why'd you take them both out at the same time? So this chart gives a representation of the bridge hits, the bridge strikes that we've had in the Odessa district going back to 2019. So we had 24 in 2019. So if y'all are familiar with those two structures, Cotton Flat and Midkiff were low, what we call low clearance overpasses going over I-20. So they were, for lack of a better word, they were taking a beating. So the idea is we're doing what we call flip the stack. So we want to take I-20 over them. You can see how we've kind of had a decrease in this year so far. So this graph shows 4 bridge strikes. We actually had one yesterday, so now we're at 5. But that is why we really needed to go ahead and get those projects done. We had the funding for them, so we needed to go ahead and get that flipped over. The red line shows our damage claim. So when we find the people that hit those bridges and do that damage, they're going to get a ticket, obviously. We file on their insurance, so we try to recoup that money for the taxpayers to get those bridges repaired. Recoup that money so we can get those bridges repaired. All right, we're going to see if this is going to work. So this is a simulation of what Cotton Flat and Midkiff are going to look like. Honestly, it's a simulation of what all of the I-20 corridor is going to look like once we get it reconstructed. But three lanes go in each direction, so 6 lane with that center median and one-way frontage roads. So we're working on moving the exit ramps for these roads away from the overpasses. That's what you do when you have more of an urban interstate section. What that allows is your merging movement starts occurring on the frontage roads instead of on the main lanes of your interstate highway. So it's more efficient and allows for that traffic to get through on the main lanes of the interstate in a little bit safer condition. Okay, we're not going to watch all that video. That video is also out on our I believe we're on our TXDOT.gov website for the Odessa District, if anybody wants to go and look at that. This chart here just shows the full scope of what we're going to be doing on I-20 from the west side of Odessa to the east side of Midland. So we're already working on the 3 overpasses there in Midland that I was talking about. Today at 1 o'clock, so in about 50 minutes, 40 minutes, we have the bid opening for this first piece reconstruction of I-20 from JBS going east to County Road 1300, I believe it is. It's about 5 miles. That one bids today at 1 o'clock, so we're all anxious to see how that bid comes out. We're estimating at about $253 million. That's going to be the single largest project the Odessa District has ever bid out. So I think we're all anxious to see how that comes out. But the total, there we go. The total investment, once we get this 40-mile corridor rebuilt, is right at $1.4 billion. And the reality is it's going to take us probably 10 to 15 years to get this whole segment built out, is kind of what we're looking at. Getting close to the end on this one. So this slide shows what we call our Category 11 ES funding. So at TXDOT, we have 12 different funding categories. So Cat 11 ES is energy sector. So that's money specifically set aside from that Prop 1 and Prop 7. So the Odessa District in FY23, our UTP, we had $780 million. In 24, we got a $323 million boost in that funding. So we're sitting at $1.1 billion, dollars in Cat 11 ES funding that we're getting. And again, that's due to all the work that all of y'all in this room perform. With that, we'll go to my next one. And I'm right on time. Okay, so I got another takeaway. Y'all ready for this one? So I told my wife the other day, honey, you need to embrace your mistakes. So she got up and gave me a hug. So, I don't know. Kind of hurt a little bit, that one did. Okay, so y'all have heard the phrase several times today, in the street, okay? Hopefully was this the first time some of you have ever heard that phrase, in the street? Hopefully you've heard it. Okay, so my next part of my slide, we're going to talk specifically about traffic safety, statistics for the Odessa District, statistics for the state, and kind of what we're trying to do and the trends we're seeing, which is why we're all here, right? Okay, looking statewide, so this chart shows in the blue, that's the state of Texas, the fatals we've had on Texas roadways. So you see 18, 19, we were seeing a trend down, and then 2020, we see it go up, and then 2021, we see what we all called the COVID bump. Like nobody can figure out through quarantines and everything else, why did traffic fatals go up so much in 2020 and 2021, but it was a nationwide trend. So we saw that every state experienced this bump. We did see a slight drop statewide to 4,403 in 2022. The tan bar charts at the bottom show the Odessa District trends. So we didn't see that drop in 22. We actually saw a spike to the second most all-time high in fatals within the Odessa District of 209. So this chart shows there's an initiative that the Transportation Commission, they're appointed by the governor, and they are the board that gives TXDOT, sets our initiatives, and kind of lays out our goal and our vision. In 2019, the Transportation Commission adopted what they call the Road to Zero Initiative. So the Road to Zero Initiative says, we're setting a goal for the state of Texas that by the year 2050, we will have 0 deaths on roads in the state of Texas for a whole year, right? It's a pretty ambitious initiative. So you can see the trends once they set that goal, how we did. Again, so 2019, they set the goal, we're trending down, then 2020 we're up, we spike again in 21, and now we're kind of trending back down. I'm trying to look at what I had over there on the side. Okay, so we saw a 1.1% statewide decrease in 2021. So let's start getting into the data, right? So I'm an engineer, so we're going to get into the data on this. So this shows the unrestrained occupant fatals. So we got a lot of first responders in here. I'm pretty sure they've worked plenty of crashes where one of the occupants wasn't restrained. So what do the statistics say? So the number across the top shows the seatbelt usage for the state of Texas. So NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, each year hires college kids to go out random places all around the United States, and they stand on the roadway and they count how many people drive by that are wearing seatbelts, not wearing seatbelts, and they track this data. So we've seen an increase up to 90.38% of drivers in the state of Texas wear seatbelts. Now, 48% of the vehicle occupants that could have worn a seatbelt account for the 10% gap in the fatals, the 10% people. Let me back up. So we got 10% of our population that's not wearing seatbelts in the state of Texas. They account for 50% of the fatalities on Texas roadways. I mean, let that sink in. That is a stat I do encourage y'all to go back, talk to your family about. If you've got family members that don't wear their seatbelts, 10% of the people that aren't wearing their seatbelts in the state of Texas account for 50% of the fatal numbers we're seeing. So this gives a breakdown of all of the, we got 25 districts again in the state, gives a breakdown of where all the fatals are. This is one for Odessa. We're kind of leading the pack on it, and it's not a metric that I really want to lead the pack on. But when you compare it to the other districts in the state, we've got an extremely high number of fatals that happen in the Odessa district. So let's break it down by rural districts. Well, there's not another rural district in the state of Texas that even comes close to the numbers that we saw in 2022. So let's look at the metros. You know, we're not too far behind Austin District with 362. Slip back and look at the urbans. So where we're trending on our traffic fatals in the Odessa district puts us more in the urban districts, which for me and for us at TXDOT is not an acceptable place for us to be. Some crash data facts. So we already talked about the 4,406 fatals in 2022. So when we talk about hashtag in the streak or in the streak, November 7th of 2000 was the last day in the state of Texas that we didn't have a fatal somewhere on a Texas roadway. So my daughter was born December 11th of 2000. So she's never in her life has had a day that someone in the state of Texas didn't die on a roadway. That's right at 84,000 lives lost since November 7th. So you might say, Eric, we can't end the streak. But I'm telling you, we can end the streak. We can't get to road to zero until we can go one day, right? February 13th of 2020, so less than a year ago, we only had one death. And it was a person that didn't wear their seatbelt. That's a human factor that we can fix, that we can end the streak. There's actually been another day, so we've actually had 2 days since this streak started that we only had one death. The other crash, I believe, the driver ran a red light and got T-boned. So breaking down some more of the statistics, what we see in the Odessa district. So 21 to 22, Statewide, we saw a 3% decrease in failure to drive in a single lane. In the Odessa district, we saw a 38% increase. Driving under the influence, 2% or 1% increase statewide, 44% increase in the Odessa district. These again are human factors, human decisions that can be that we can all do our part to help prevent these fatalities. Faulty evasive action, so that's a deer runs in the roadway, somebody's stopping to turn left, and you get surprised. 13% increase statewide, 138% increase in the Odessa district. Most likely, drivers probably looking at their cell phone, and they looked up and they didn't know that water hauler was stopping to turn on that lease road. 24% increase in the Odessa district in unrestrained occupants, so no seatbelt usage. So out of our 209 in 2022, 83 of those were unrestrained occupants. So let's talk about pickups. How many people in here drove a pickup truck today? So we love our pickup trucks, right? I drive one. So what about seatbelt usage in pickup trucks? So percent of fatals in pickup trucks statewide, there was a 15% decrease. In Odessa, we saw a 30% increase. So what about percent of pickup fatals unrestrained? So I can't hardly read that. 53.5% increase. Odessa, we saw 54, so we're right on the statewide average. Let me move on, I'm running out of time. So here's the good news. 2023, we are looking much, much better in the Odessa district in our fatals. So total fatals right now, statewide is a 7% decrease. For the Odessa district, we're sitting at 26% decrease. So we're at about 126 as of today. This time last year, we were at about 169. You start thinking about the families and the lives that difference adds up to, and I'm pretty excited for a trend like that. I added this slide mainly for this piece down here. So 50.3% of the state of Texas population is female. That means 49.7% is male. When you break that data down on who is wearing seatbelts and who is not, 73.1% of the fatalities for not wearing a seatbelt are male. So, guys, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, wear it. If you've got friends or coworkers not wearing your seatbelt, really encourage them. Again, that 10% accounts for 50% of the fatals we see in the state of Texas. So what are we doing at TXDOT? What are we doing to try to reduce these fatals? What are we doing to try to end the streak? So we got our 3 E's that we talk about. Engineering, so that factors in with that UTP, $4.3 billion. We're throwing a lot of money, the taxpayers, we're pushing a lot of money to try to address the traffic safety issues out here, help mobility, help congestion. But money is not going to fix everything. So we have education. So Dottie and Jace are here in the back. Dottie is our traffic safety specialist for the Odessa district. She gets out in the schools. She does click it or ticket campaigns, rollover convincer demonstrations. She's out a whole bunch in our schools trying to do the education aspect of our traffic safety initiatives. How many of y'all in here knew that TXDOT gives away and will install child passenger seats in vehicles to people that will call us? So I would encourage, that's another takeaway. Go back home, at your church, at your office. If they will contact us, we can get them in touch with Dottie. We can get people that need them. We can get them child passenger safety seats. We had a fatal last year in Midland. A mom in the back seat of a vehicle holding her baby. She was seat belted, but she had the baby in her lap, and they had a crash. And the baby's the only one that died. So we're giving those away. So we just send those people to us. Enforcement, so Sergeant Blanco was here talking about everything they're doing. So that's the other E on our traffic safety initiatives. So education, this just kind of highlights what Dottie and her team does. A lot of different programs, bicycle safety rodeos, helmet fittings. For our elderly drivers, we do car fits, things like that to kind of help them, learn how to get their, they'll be set up somewhere, they'll help them learn how to get their side mirrors or different things adjusted in their vehicles. Going back to enforcement, Jace is here, so these grants that they were talking about earlier, the STEP grants, so the state of Texas offers these grants to local law enforcement to pay overtime for officers to get them out more to help with this enforcement aspect of it. On the engineering side, that gives a breakdown just kind of the money that we have been putting toward these safety initiatives. 307 miles of Super 2 highways we built in about the last 5 years, so everybody loves those Super 2s. They make a huge improvement. If you drove 302 from Kermit to Mentone, or actually Kermit all the way to 285 before the Super 2, no, I'm backwards, we're still building that one. From No Trees to Kermit, before the Super 2 and then now, it's a huge improvement. That is my last slide, but the last takeaway I ask is, all of us together, we can end the streak, and if we're ever going to get and achieve the road to zero, which to me is a noble cause, it's right. Will we ever get there? I mean, we got to have a target, right? But what if we just cut it in half? That's when you're talking about 4,400 people losing their lives, you cut that to 2,200, that's a huge impact. So, all right, thank you.